Welcome to the first part of our journey through the world's most haunted forts. From the fog-covered battlements of Europe to the eerie ruins in Asia and the Americas, these historic fortresses are home to more than just stone and steel. They hold the restless spirits of those who fought, died, and suffered within their walls. Join us as we uncover the chilling tales behind these haunted sites and explore the dark secrets that still echo through time. 1. Pangar Fort, Rajasthan, India. Pangar Fort, perched in the desolate Aravalli Hills, holds a sinister secret. It is said to be one of the most haunted places in India, cursed by a tragic love story twisted by dark magic. Long ago, a powerful sorcerer named Singhia became infatuated with the beautiful Princess Ratnavati of Pangar. Using his black magic, he cast a spell to make her fall in love with him, but the princess, wise and aware, saw through the sorcerer's plot. In defiance, she turned his magic against him, causing his death. Before his last breath, the sorcerer cursed the land, vowing that the kingdom would fall and its inhabitants would be doomed to haunt the fort for eternity. The once grand kingdom soon crumbled and its people vanished. Since that time, locals and visitors alike report terrifying experiences. Eerie sounds fill the air at night, like whispers of those who died in the sorcerer's wrath. Ghostly apparitions of the sorcerer and the princess are said to roam the fort, their unfinished business lingering in the ruins. It's said that anyone who dares stay overnight is never seen again, swallowed by the darkness that still grips this forsaken place. People speak of cold drafts, phantom footsteps echoing through the crumbling walls, and chilling shadows that move independently of any living being. 2. Fort George, Scotland. In the fog-drenched highlands of Scotland, Fort George stands as an imposing sentinel to a dark past. This fortress, built in the aftermath of the Jacobite Rising of 1745, was designed to suppress rebellion, but it never truly silenced the restless spirits that walk its grounds. Soldiers and visitors have long reported eerie occurrences, cold spots that appear out of nowhere, the distinct sound of boots marching in the dead of night, and even whispers of soldiers who seem to materialize out of thin air. The most prominent of these specters is the ghost of a Highlander, forever locked in the memories of battle, wandering the battlements and barracks, seeking something he lost in life, his very soul perhaps. Some say they've heard the unmistakable clang of a sword striking metal, only to turn and see nothing but empty air. In the dim light of evening, one can sometimes make out the shadow of a figure standing just beyond the range of clarity before it vanishes as quickly as it came. The chilling sound of bagpipes drifting in the wind is another haunting touch, signaling that the past still fights to be remembered. Tercer Castillo de San Marcos, St. Augustine, Florida, USA. The Castillo de San Marcos, an ancient fortress in the heart of St. Augustine, Florida, holds the scars of centuries of conflict. Built by the Spanish in the late 1600s, it was designed to defend the colony from English invaders. Yet it seems to be haunted by the very soldiers who fought and died in those battles. Visitors often hear the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the stone halls, only to turn and find no one there. Some claim to have seen the figure of a tall, spectral soldier standing watch on the ramparts, his uniform tattered and his face obscured by time. Ghostly musket shots can be heard in the distance, followed by eerie silence, as if the dead are forever reliving their final moments. On moonlit nights, the ghostly image of a young soldier, looking forlorn and broken, is seen pacing the battlements, his footsteps echoing the desperate cries of those who once stood there. For some, these experiences are nothing short of overwhelming, the feeling of being watched becoming palpable as they traverse the fortress. Locals warn that the spirits of those long past remain trapped within the stone walls, prisoners to a past they cannot escape. 4. Fort Warren, George Island, Massachusetts, USA. Set on the remote George Island in Boston Harbor, Fort Warren has long been a place of tragedy and despair. Originally built to protect the city during the Civil War, it has since become notorious for its ghostly residents, particularly the infamous Lady in Black. Legend has it that she was the wife of a soldier who was imprisoned within the fort. Heartbroken and unable to see her husband, she wandered the island searching for him, but her love was never returned. In her madness, she took her own life, and since then, her spirit has been seen wandering the fort in the dead of night. Many have reported seeing a woman in black, her face obscured, slowly drifting through the empty halls, her sorrowful wails filling the air. Other witnesses have described hearing ghostly voices echoing in the courtyard, the sound of iron chains rattling as if from long-dead prisoners who had been kept in the fort's dark, damp dungeons. One of the most chilling aspects of Fort Warren is the overwhelming sense of sorrow that fills the air. Visitors report an oppressive feeling, a sensation of deep sadness, as if the fort itself mourns for those lost to time. The Red Fort, Delhi, India. The Red Fort in Delhi, an iconic symbol of India's rich history, is also home to dark whispers and restless spirits. Built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, the fort has seen countless battles, royal betrayals, and tragic deaths. It's said that the spirit of a former Mughal princess who was murdered within its walls now roams the corridors. Visitors claim to have heard the soft sobs of a woman echoing through the empty halls, and some have even caught glimpses of her ghostly figure draped in royal garb, wandering through the courtyard. The fort is also haunted by soldiers and prisoners who were executed here. Ghostly figures have been seen standing near the gates at night, their faces frozen in eternal agony. At times, the scent of burning incense and strange chanting fills the air, as if the fort itself is recalling its bloody past. The soldiers' spirits, trapped in the afterlife by the violence that transpired within the fort's walls, make their presence felt through cold drafts, unexplained noises, and fleeting shadows that dart in and out of sight. It is said that those who wander too far into the fort's darker, less traveled sections feel an overwhelming sense of dread, as if something unseen is following them, urging them to leave. 6. Fort Mifflin, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. Fort Mifflin, located on the Delaware River, played a significant role during the American Revolution, and it's steeped in both history and haunting. Ghostly soldiers, who perished in the brutal siege, are said to still roam the fort's grounds. One of the most chilling encounters is with the Faceless Man, an apparition of a soldier whose face is obscured, his features twisted by the agony of war. Those who've seen him claim he is always shrouded in a dark cloak, his movements erratic and unnatural. Visitors often hear disembodied voices, the soft murmur of soldiers in conversation, only to turn and find no one there. One of the most unsettling features of Fort Mifflin's haunting is the presence of a woman's scream that echoes through the air late at night, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. Locals believe that the woman was either a camp follower who was murdered by the soldiers, or a wife of a fallen soldier, forever tormented by her tragic fate. The air in the fort is thick with an oppressive energy, a sense of loss and despair that seems to come from the very walls themselves. 7. Castillo de San Filipe, Cartagena, Colombia. Perched high above the city of Cartagena, Castillo de San Filipe is a fortress with a dark and haunted past. Built in the 16th century to protect the city from pirates, it has seen countless battles, betrayals, and untold suffering. During the colonial era, the fort served as a prison for the condemned, many of whom never left its cold stone walls. Visitors to the fort often report hearing the sound of chains dragging across the floors, accompanied by whispers in the wind, as if the spirits of the prisoners are still trapped within the fortress. One of the most terrifying apparitions is that of a tortured soul. His anguished face is said to appear in the darkness, his eyes pleading for release. Others speak of a shadowy figure roaming the tunnels beneath the fort, a soldier whose ghost is forever guarding the ancient gates. The oppressive atmosphere and the heavy air around Castillo de San Filipe make it a place where time seems to stand still, and the spirits of the past remain ever present, waiting for the living to hear their cries. 8. Gala Fort, Sri Lanka. The ancient Gala Fort, standing tall on Sri Lanka's southern coast, holds a dark history that still echoes in its stone walls. Built by the Portuguese and later expanded by the Dutch in the 17th century, it has witnessed countless battles, colonial cruelty, and the untimely deaths of sailors and soldiers. It's said that the spirits of those lost to the fort's bloody past still roam its eerie streets at night. Visitors report hearing the disembodied cries of soldiers, the sharp clash of swords, and the whispering voices of sailors lost at sea. But the most unsettling ghostly presence is that of a young woman, her tragic fate woven into the fort's history. She was a bride who arrived at the fort only to have her husband perish during a sudden attack. Consumed by grief, she jumped to her death from the ramparts, her spirit forever trapped within the walls. Witnesses claim to see her ghostly figure near the fort's edges, staring out to sea as if waiting for her lost love. Cold spots and an overwhelming sense of sorrow fill the air around the fort, with a heavy presence that seems to follow you wherever you go. 9. Fort Amherst, Kent, England. In the quiet countryside of Kent, England, lies Fort Amherst, a fortress steeped in haunting history. Built during the Napoleonic Wars, this fort was designed to protect the country from invasion, but instead, it became a prison for the souls of the lost. The dark tunnels beneath the fort are said to be the most haunted, where the spirits of soldiers and prisoners are trapped in eternal torment. Visitors report hearing the sound of heavy boots echoing through the damp corridors, and the chilling clank of chains dragging across the stone floors. One of the most chilling stories is that of a soldier who fell to his death in a tragic accident. His ghost is said to haunt the ramparts, appearing as a shadowy figure that suddenly vanishes into the fog. Another restless spirit is that of a woman, believed to be a prisoner who was brutally murdered here. Her cries and footsteps can often be heard late at night, and those who have ventured too deep into the fort's forgotten tunnels report an overwhelming sense of dread, as if something unseen is watching them. The air grows cold, and an eerie silence falls, broken only by the faint whispers of the past. Fort Amherst is a place where the line between the living and the dead blurs, and its ghosts continue to linger, waiting for release that may never come. 10. Fort Delaware, Delaware City, Delaware, USA, located on Pea Patch Island. Fort Delaware is a chilling reminder of America's troubled past. Built during the Civil War, it once held Confederate prisoners, many of whom met a brutal fate within its walls. The fort's dark dungeons still echo with their torment. Visitors often hear phantom footsteps pacing the old corridors, the distant sound of chains dragging along the cold stone floors, and the soft murmur of voices whispering in the shadows. The most chilling presence is that of a Confederate soldier, said to have died in agony from disease and starvation. His ghost is seen wandering the ramparts, staring out at the water, as if searching for a way to escape. But the spirits of Fort Delaware are not just confined to the soldiers. Reports of a woman in a tattered dress, believed to be the ghost of a grieving wife, have surfaced over the years. Her mournful wails can be heard in the dead of night, carried on the wind. The air here is thick with an oppressive, almost suffocating energy, and those brave enough to explore the fort after dark claim to feel a cold hand brush their shoulder or catch a fleeting glimpse of someone just beyond their sight. Fort Delaware is a place where the past never truly dies, and its restless spirits refuse to be forgotten. 11th, Chitgarh Fort, Rajasthan, India. Chitgarh Fort, towering over the arid landscape of Rajasthan, is a monument to India's fierce history and tragic love stories. Built in the 7th century, this sprawling fortress has witnessed countless battles, betrayals, and the loss of countless lives. One of its most haunting tales comes from the time of the siege in the 16th century, when Queen Padmini, the beautiful and brave queen, chose to end her life rather than fall into the hands of the invaders. Her act of self-sacrifice, known as jauhar, set the stage for the restless spirits that now haunt the fort. Visitors often report hearing the sound of soft, ethereal wails, especially near the Jauhar Kund, the site where the queen and other women perished in the flames. The fort is said to be home to the ghost of a soldier, eternally searching for his lost comrades, his shadowy figure glimpsed in the corners of the fort's ruins. But it is the presence of Queen Padmini that sends shivers down the spine of those who wander the fort's desolate halls. Her spirit, said to appear as a shadowy figure, walks the ramparts at night, her eyes filled with sorrow and defiance. In the silence of the fort, the cold air seems to thicken, and an overwhelming sense of loss pervades, as if the walls themselves mourn the past that can never be undone. Chitgarh Fort remains a place where the cries of the fallen echo through time, and the spirits of the lost refuse to be forgotten. 12th. Fort Gaines, Doan Island, Alabama, USA. Fort Gaines, standing on Doan Island, Alabama, is a chilling relic of the Civil War, with a dark past that refuses to fade into history. Built in the early 19th century, the fort played a key role in the Battle of Mobile Bay, where bloodshed stained its walls. Today, it's not just the stone walls that linger, so do the spirits of those who died violently within. Visitors often hear the echoes of distant cannon fire and the haunting sounds of soldiers marching along the battlements. One of the most eerie apparitions is that of a soldier, forever trapped in a state of unrest, whose ghostly figure is seen wandering the fort's grounds, especially near the old artillery. The air grows thick with unease, and some claim to feel the unmistakable presence of someone, watching from the shadows. The fort's most infamous hauntings center around the underground tunnels, where the spirits of soldiers, lost to war and time, roam. Cold spots freeze the air, and disembodied footsteps echo in the silence. For those brave enough to venture into the fort after dark, an overwhelming sense of dread fills the air, as if the spirits of the past are silently awaiting the return of their final battle. Fort Gaines is a place where death still lingers, and the dead refuse to be silenced. 13. Fort Santiago, Manila, Philippines. Fort Santiago, nestled in the heart of Manila, is a fortress steeped in dark, haunted history. Built in 1593, it has served as a military stronghold, prison, and execution site, its walls echoing with the screams of the innocent. During the brutal Japanese occupation in World War II, the fort became a place of unimaginable cruelty. Prisoners were tortured, and many met their death here, their spirits forever bound to the stone walls. Today, visitors report hearing the faint sound of footsteps in the empty cells and chilling whispers in the darkened halls. One of the most tragic and eerie apparitions is that of a prisoner, said to be a man who was brutally executed within the fort's walls. His ghost is seen pacing the prison yard, his face twisted in agony, as if reliving his final moments. The air around Fort Santiago is thick with sorrow and unease, and cold drafts often sweep through the fort, as if the spirits of the tortured souls are trying to make their presence known. Some claim to feel an icy hand brush their shoulder, while others see shadowy figures darting through the corners of their vision. Fort Santiago remains a chilling reminder of the past, a place where the dead never truly rest, and their tormented spirits linger, waiting for peace that may never come. 14. Alcatraz Fort, San Francisco, California, USA. Alcatraz, the infamous island fortress standing tall in the San Francisco Bay, holds a chilling reputation, not just as a former prison, but as a place of death and torment. Originally built as a military fort in the 19th century, its history is soaked in blood. As a federal penitentiary, it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in history, many of whom never left. The air is thick with the echoes of tortured souls, and those brave enough to visit report strange, unsettling phenomena. In the cold, dark cells, disembodied footsteps are often heard, and the flickering lights seem to cast shadows of those long gone. The ghost of a former prisoner, said to have died under mysterious circumstances, is often seen pacing the corridors, his face contorted in fear. But it's not just the prisoners who haunt Alcatraz. Ghostly figures of guards and even visitors have been spotted, trapped in an endless loop of their final moments. Cold drafts sweep through the corridors, and the haunting clank of chains can be heard late at night. Alcatraz is a place where the past refuses to release its grip, and the restless spirits of the lost wander, waiting for an escape that will never come. 15. Fort William Henry, Lake George, New York, USA. Fort William Henry, located on the shores of Lake George, New York, is a site steeped in tragedy and restless spirits. Built in the mid-1700s, it was the scene of one of the bloodiest massacres during the French and Indian War. When British forces surrendered the fort to the French, a massacre ensued, where hundreds of soldiers and civilians were slaughtered. The screams of the dying still echo through the fort's ruins. Visitors often report hearing phantom gunshots, the sound of footsteps pacing the old wooden floors, and unsettling whispers in the night. The most infamous apparition is that of a soldier, his uniform tattered and stained with blood, seen walking the grounds, his eyes hollow with despair. But it's not just the soldiers that haunt this place. Many claim to encounter the spirits of innocent women and children who perished during the massacre. Their ghostly figures are seen wandering the fort, their faces frozen in terror. A sense of cold dread fills the air, and the feeling of being watched never leaves those who walk the grounds after dark. Fort William Henry remains a place where the past is never truly gone, and the spirits of those who died in agony linger, waiting for peace that may never come. Thank you for joining us on this spine-chilling exploration of haunted forts from around the world. The spirits of the past refuse to remain silent, their stories continuing to haunt these places, reminding us that history never truly fades. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll uncover even more terrifying tales from haunted locations. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on our next haunting adventure.